that's what they talked about on this podcast. You can go listen to it for yourself. The number one question when you finish listening to it, to me, is who are they talking to? Because they keep mentioning the source. Cowherd's like, hey, I'm pretty sure we got the same source here. And at the end, he goes, well, Silver is incredibly well sourced on Baker, incredibly well sourced on the 49ers. It almost sounded like they had a little chat before the interview and discussed who their source was. If you had Mike, if you're watching, we don't know. It's a fun conversation. You know, it's the question on everyone's mind. So we're gonna speculate, and we don't know. But who do you think, if you had to guess, the source was or sources?
My best guess would be John Lynch.
It's almost too obvious, right?
Yeah.
When Silver was saying all the superlatives and elite traits that Jimmy Garoppolo has, like the only person who talks like that is John Lynch in the world. Right. Maybe Jimmy's dad or brother.
Right. But, and Colin Cowherd, he works at Fox, so he said right. So
there's a work connection. Silver, I believe, wrote a biography of Mike Shanahan. Probably has known Kyle Shanahan since he was 10.
And Mike Shanahan has been on Colin's show.
See, that's why I said sources. I don't think Kyle has the time or the inclination to talk to Mike Silver or anyone off the record. I don't think he would do that. I could be wrong. Now, Mike Shanahan has time. He's retired. He knows Mike Silver very well. I wonder. You know what I'm saying? And the thing with Mike is he's got his own agenda. Like, first he wants to protect his son, but also remember, he's not in the Hall of Fame. He won 2 Super Bowls, and the knock against him was that, well, you were just kind of a product of John Elway. Like, once you lost John Elway, you're pretty much a 500 coach after that. And I think he was always trying to prove that he could do something without a super talented quarterback. Ever since he lost Elway, he gravitated to quarterbacks like Brian Greasy and Jake Plummer, like mid-round backup types. And so does Kyle. I think both of them want to show that there's something so special about their scheme that transcends even great quarterback play. Neither one's been able to show that. And so maybe there's a little bit of that going on here as well. Like, this Trey Lance guy is not going to be the solution to everything, I don't know.
Yeah. But Kyle at least said, I think that he said something to the contrary to that, right? Like you want the elite guy because the elite guy makes everything easier for you.
Yeah.
And that's essentially when in the NFL. Bill Walsh didn't win anything without elite quarterback play, right? Like, right. Like you got to find that guy. You got to find the guy.
You really do. Yeah. So I guess, look, we're thinking Mike Shanahan, John Lynch, those two guys. I don't know, but I do feel that last thing, and Silver brought this up, the Mac Jones thing. He keeps bringing it because he was one of the guys, Silver, that reported the Niners were pretty much all set on Mac Jones. He was very confident in that and was making it seem like he'd heard. So again, he knows what he's talking about. The way I interpret that is, I think Kyle changed his mind at the last minute. Or maybe didn't make up his mind until the last minute. I think there was a Mac Jones camp in the front office and a Trey Lance camp. Maybe Kyle had indicated that he was leaning one way and then went the other way at the last minute, or was just keeping people on the edge of their seat. But I think a lot of people in the organization were surprised and maybe disagreed with it. And I think one of them, if I had to guess, would be John Lynch. He seems like a Mac Jones kind of guy. And I wonder about the dad too, because Mac Jones and Brian Greasy have so much in common, so much. Just seems like a Mike Shanahan kind of guy.
Or maybe it wasn't Lynch, but it was still someone within the organization. It was hard because I think that when if I remember right, when Kyle and John talked about that, they said they didn't tell anybody who they were going to pick. They told York at the last minute.
Or maybe Kyle had given indications, made some arguments, and people thought he liked Mac Jones, and all of a sudden he pulled the rug out from Rich Gangarello or whatever.
Maybe he didn't even tell his dad, or maybe his dad was the source, and maybe he didn't even tell his. I think he probably would have told.
I think he just allowed a lot of people to think it was going to be Mac Jones, and I think a lot of people like Mike Silver still wonder why. Why did you allow so many people so close to you for so long to think it was going to be Mac Jones if it never was. That's strange. What is the motivation for that? I'm not saying that's what happened, but that seems like what they're saying is what happened.
What is
that? Why would they do that? Why would Kyle do that? I feel like when Windhorst did that for those 2 minutes, he pretty much summed up my entire career. That's what I do. Why would the 49ers do this? Let's talk about that for the next hour. That's what I do. He stumbled onto my entire business model.
And then he was right though, because right after that they started Utah traded Gobert and yeah.
I mean, really, he redeemed like 20 years of just a really forgettable career with that moment. In that moment, he became like a cult hero and a meme. All of a sudden, he's cool. Brian Windhorst was the least cool sports reporter in the world before that moment. Now he's number one. It's so great when you see a guy live long enough to become the hero, Yeah. Anyway, thank you, Michael Silver. Thank you, Colin Cowherd. I hope people don't. I hope they don't object to our objections too much. I mean, you put out stuff like that, it's going to start a conversation. Anyway, I respect their professionalism. Last thing I want to say though, and I had to hold this in. Man, Mike Silver, Mike, I love you, Mike. You live in Davis. Santa Clara is not that far away. You haven't watched Trey Lance practice very much, maybe a couple of times. I'm there every day. Hit me up. If you got an inside line to the Niners and they're going to tell you that's great. I respect that. I'm not knocking that. But cross-reference. They have an agenda. They're trying to trade him. Okay, they really love Jimmy. He's got 4 elite traits. That sounds a little over the top. I'm going to call Grant. I have Grant's number. Let me talk to someone who's also seen him and doesn't have that bias. And now I can sort of cross-reference and see what I believe. Don't just be super juiced that you have an inside source with the Niners and just repeat what they told you. Because one, you could come to practice and watch Trey and Jimmy for yourself. Like last year, this all started when first 5 days of camp, Trey tore it up. I wrote that he's the best quarterback I'd ever seen on that practice field. And Matt Mayoko said essentially the same thing. So that was sort of like, that's not the narrative the Niners wanted. They wanted Jimmy last year. And that was sort of pressuring the Niners to give Trey first team reps, which they hadn't done yet. Silver comes, watches 1 day of practice where Jimmy was, okay, but he was essentially Jimmy, and then writes, Jimmy's having the best camp of his life. Jimmy's playing the best football of his life. First of all, he didn't show that today. He's never shown that. You're not here. Who told you that? And just because they told you, it doesn't mean it's true. That's my one thing with Mike, man. Like, Mike, I love you. You're an OG in this game. You know better, man. Come on. Come to practice. I will show you what I'm talking about with Jimmy. Because if you were there every day in camp last year, you wouldn't have said he had the best camp of his life. You'd be like, that's what you would have been like. So I just don't understand. You got to remember too, Mike, the Niners are trying to trade Jimmy, and they really are trying to gaslight the whole nation that he's really good and they like him, but they want to trade him. So don't allow them to let you gaslight people too. And if you really were there and you felt that Jimmy was elite in those 4 things, fine. Come on, man. You don't really think that, do you? Anyway, that's all. So one thing I wanted to say about Mike, and I'm not questioning his professionalism or anything. I just feel like in this one particular thing, I don't know, maybe he just knows John Lynch super well for the last 30 years and just trusts him. And if John tells him something, it's the truth. Or he wants John to succeed. I don't know. It's almost like he's trying to help John trade Jimmy. Come on, man. Let John do that on his own. John got himself in this situation. He can get himself out.
The 49ers are fortunate that they have 2 reporters where they can use this to, I think him and Peter King are the two they're well connected with, and super because didn't Peter King write something similar last year about Jimmy Garoppolo?
Yes.
But yeah.
Yes. It just seems like I don't know, but it seems like when times get tough and it's time to when the narrative is getting away from the 49ers and it's time to get control of that again, John Lynch calls his old faithfuls. You know what I mean? It just feels transparent. But I don't know. Please don't get me in trouble for speculating. I was just speculating. I don't know. I don't know.
How do you feel about Trent Williams being the first offensive lineman to be rated 99 overall in Madden?
Probably well deserved. I would think he probably should have gotten this a long time ago, and the fact that you gave it to him at 35 is kind of funny. Probably should have had it at 27, 25.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Probably because he was buried on
overcorrection
on the Commanders.
I'm not saying he's not a 99, but it took this long for them to figure out that he's this good?
Like, but also, if you look at like, there's not been an offensive lineman that's been worthy of a 99 like in the last 20 years. I disagree with that. Like Joe Thomas was pretty flipping good. He was just on a terrible team. Like there've been really good offensive tackles out there. I just think people just don't give offensive linemen even the love. Like
that's true.
I mean, Quentin Nelson, like,
yeah, really, yeah. They're just throwing out 99s left and right over here to wide receivers, I guess.
Yeah,
I haven't played Madden since
like 30. Like, yeah. Although Jimmy's not a 99.
What's he 70?
You would think Jimmy Garoppolo would be a 99.
Is he 99 accuracy?
Yeah,
99 willingness to hang in?
I don't even think his accuracy in Madden is in the 90s.
Because it shouldn't be.
What's his injury rating?
Oh, Madden, no.